Hello, not the usual start to the podcast, as you're probably aware, unless this is your first episode, in which case this is not the usual way that these podcasts start. I'm just popping in before we play the cold open to say that right at the very end of this episode, as I was literally wrapping it up, the power cut out in my house, so there's no video in this episode if you're watching on YouTube, because that entire thing got corrupted. I managed to salvage the audio file, so the entire episode review is still fine and totally good. It will just suddenly come to an end at the end, though, so there won't be any of the plugins, email us or whatever, but read the description for that stuff. I could plug it in right now, but this has already almost gone on for a minute, and I feel like we should just get into the episode. So yeah, the reason the power went out was because a bull was rubbing itself against the electrical wire. It's really fun living in the countryside. Ha ha ha.
Halley's Comet?
That's right. They plan to divert it, cause it to crash into Earth. It'll make a very loud bang.
Indeed it will. It'll also bring about a massive change in established history. The Time Lords would never allow it.
Who knows? Perhaps their agent is already at work.
And if they are, they're taking their time about it. For a start, why... Wait a minute. No! No, not me! You haven't maneuvered me into this mess just so that I can get you out of it! It would have helped if I had known what was going on!
You are a Time Lord?
Yes, and at the moment, a rather angry one.
I want to see the Cybermen dealt with as much as the Time Lords do.
Yeah?
Hello and welcome to Who Watches Who, a Doctor Who podcast with me, Matthew, and as always...
Hello, I'm Scott. I always feel weird introducing myself because we've had this conversation. We had a pre-conversation before starting the podcast, and then all of a sudden I'm here saying, "Hello, I'm Scott."
We're about 60 episodes in. Weird time to start bringing up a complaint about it now. That's thrown me off completely. This week we are concluding our Attack of the Cyberman deep dive with Attack of the Cybermen Part 2, an episode of Doctor Who that we have both seen. Definitely lots of positive things to say about it. Not really bad in any way whatsoever.
Hey, maybe we'll rewatch this and be like, "Oh my god, it's the best episode ever." Maybe it's underrated like the Doctor Who movie. Unlikely, but still.
I watched this episode. I finished watching this episode 45 minutes ago. It's not good, but to be fair, I wasn't really paying attention because it was really boring and it wasn't demanding my attention.
Yeah,
really.
this episode is a load of, "Oh hey, this is a subplot you haven't thought about before." Anyway, on to the next scene. "Oh, this is a subplot you've never thought about before." On to the next scene. It's just a load of people being like, "Oh my god, you didn't know this thing about the plot," and then it just goes on to the next scene.
And then it just kind of ends. It just kind of peters
Oh,
out.
oh my god, what if the bad guy is a good guy when he dies?
Spoilers, we're not there yet. We have a whole 44 minutes and 29 seconds of great episode to get through before we get there, Scott. A whole
Boy,
44 minutes.
I'm so excited.
I can't wait either.
Best episode.
Shall we dive into it? Or have you got
Yes.
stuff to say? Yeah,
I have
it.
nothing to say.
Awesome. Let's dive right in, shall we?
Didn't go very well, did it?
Earth safe. So is history and the web of time.
I meant on a personal level. I don't think I've ever misjudged anybody quite as badly as I did Lytton.
So our episode begins where our last one left off, because of course this is classic Who, and who are they to leave a story thread dangling? As of course, if you remember last week, we left with, oh god, what's her name? She does nothing in this episode. She was so good in the first. She does something in this episode. She's okay. What was her name? Oh,
I'll see if you can remember. Starts with a P.
Perry.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes,
The
I remember because I
platypus.
was thinking chicken the entire time last week. But yeah, so Perry is getting attacked by Cybermen, which are all inside of the TARDIS suddenly, don't question how. And they're about to kill her. The Doctor suddenly says, "Stop, don't kill her." And for whatever reason, the Cybermen listen. And then the Cybermen let the Doctor stand up and turn on the self-destruct sequence on the TARDIS. And he's like, "Hey, let her go or we're all going to die." Which is, kind of what the Doctor does all the time. Even in modern Who,
Yeah.
the self-destruct in the TARDIS has been set.
Yeah.
Many, 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 many times.
Or there's a time where he just rolls out without jamming dodge and he's like, I'm going to
I
push
was about
this
to
big
say,
red button.
Which is the best version of setting the self-destruct. With the Power Ranger Daleks, I think that was, wasn't it?
Yes, it was Victoria of the Daleks.
Yes. But the Cybermen listen for whatever reason, and then they're like, "Okay, we'll let you live, Doctor, and also, ha ha ha, we have a time machine now," which we go on to discover makes zero sense because they also already had a time machine, and they still do have one. They just wanted another one, because I mean, once you've got one, everybody wants one, and they're really hard to find.
Yeah, it makes no sense. This whole episode just makes no sense. It's just like
Which is strange because this episode is trying harder than any other episode I've seen Classic Who to make sense. They are jumping through hoops to try and make the timeline line up properly with whatever the Cyberman episode was before that name I've forgotten.
Tomb of the Cybermen. There's also
the
the 10th planet with the whole planet being destroyed. There's
They're trying to make sure everything lines up in canon. They're trying to establish rules with the Time Lords and try to establish like some sort of mechanism for traveling through time. And just literally none of it is, one, presented in an interesting way, or two, coherent. It's just people standing around being like, well, the Time Lord said that I could do this. Well, no, they told me that I wasn't allowed to do this. And it's really boring.
Yeah, and it doesn't help that this opening of the episode, for like 5 minutes, we're just talking exposition about what happened in the previous episode. Who is Lytton? Oh yeah, he worked with the Daleks last year, and blah 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 blah. Oh, what are the Cybermen doing? Oh yeah, we're trying to stop their planet from being destroyed. Blah 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 blah. And it
is straight up 5 minutes of them they were standing talking for so long. I forgot there were Cybermen's on the TARDIS with them, because then Cybermen's coming and I'm like, oh yeah, these guys are in peril.
Yeah,
they're not just standing around having a cup of tea at the end of an adventure.
Yeah, they're in a different room from the Cybermen, and then all of a sudden the Cybermen are just seen in the next room. I imagine they're just T-posing the entire time, just doing absolutely fuck all. Like, if I was a Cyberman, I would be like, stop your talking now, stop your planning, because you're obviously trying to destroy us, and that's not going to happen, guys.
Yeah, and this was something you pointed out to me that I missed. There's a black Cyberman.
Yeah,
There's
boy.
a purely painted black Cyberman standing in the corner looking like Darth Vader. And why is there one?
Which I think is so they don't get seen when we're in the sewers.
Ah.
So there's there's obviously no reflection on them, so it's perfect for them being stealthy.
But why is it just this one guy?
I don't know.
why are none of the other? I would love to find out the actual behind-the-scenes reasons why that happened.
I think that's the only reason it just happened, so they could just have the idea of it just wandering around the sewers.
Never established. All the ones we saw in the sewers were silver.
I think
they got shot immediately.
we definitely saw this one last time, but I can't remember if they were in the sewers or not.
Well, if they were, then their paint is definitely effective, because I don't remember seeing them at all.
They're like John Cena. They're just invisible, You know John Cena? Bad joke.
Just gonna leave it. We also are cutting back to our boys on Telos, who are extra useless this episode. I hope you don't get attached to them, because they are really not worth the time given to screen.
Basically, the end of every scene with the Cybermen on Telos ends with the cyber controller just walking up to the camera and delivering really bad lines. That's all that's happening.
Yeah, it's just we are going to take over, blah blah blah, and then the prisoners on Telos are like, you've got to wear this Cyberman costume, and the other guy's like, nah, and then he's like, yeah, and then that guy's like, I guess you're right, and also those guys will do nothing as well, so don't worry about that. Really glad they've added in this Telos subplot.
There was a twist that could have been interesting with those two guys in any other episode, but here it's just presented as a twist, and nothing is done with it. And also, the Cybermen on Talos present the idea of, oh yeah, the Time Lords could interfere. It comes back later on, but again, nothing is ever done with it. And this is the whole episode. They present ideas that could happen, but nothing is ever done with them.
It's an episode of saying, hey, this would be cool, wouldn't it? Too bad. Oh, what about this side? This would be a cool idea. Oh, you can't have that one either.
It's exactly what you want from a Doctor Who story, you know. And it's also all these ideas that are being presented wasn't presented in episode 1, so it's just out of the blue. Same with
episode 1 was like a standard little Doctor Who adventure where Cyberman showed up at the end. This one is like talking about the rules of time travel. A whole different alien species arrives. We've got our guys on Telos. There's another time machine that they're trying to travel through, and the Cybermen are trying to travel back in time to stop their planet to create some sort of paradox. Like, it's this absolutely huge, suddenly scoped episode that was not set up in episode 1.
And there's also the whole subplot with Flitton apparently being a good guy and helping these creatures, and it's just like, that wasn't presented in episode 1. Why was he a bad guy in episode? He was kind of presented as a bad guy in episode 1. So why is that not the same here? It goes back to the Dalek episode we covered from the Peter Davidson era. It's just like too many subplots. The point where they're trying to clone the Doctor and we're trying to make them kill the Time Lords, which just comes out of nowhere.
And is born, lives, and dies in that one room in that one scene. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's also a rogue Cyberman going around on Talos, which again adds nothing to the episode.
I literally don't remember it playing into any of the other plots at all.
The rogue Cyberman is just basically a subplot that's carried over from the invasion. They're basically gone mad from exposure to extreme emotion and just attacks people in Cyberman. But here it's just like, oh yeah, we just need an excuse for some action sometimes, and it only carries in like 2 or 3 scenes when it just adds nothing else to the episode. It's very bizarre.
Interesting.
Also, we're covered in slime for no reason.
Yeah, I don't question that aspect. Also, just to bring it up now, because I feel like it's just going to become more and more distracting as we go into it. Obviously, we're using BritBox, which is a very good subscription service, I think, here in the UK. Or at least it used to be.
Yeah.
Just recently, it's been like falling apart. Like the app functionalities on both the Fire Stick and my phone have thrown out the window. No longer works on my default browser, and I have to use Chrome, otherwise it's going to work. And the subtitles to this episode are all over the place. There's just words cut in half. Like,
yeah, there's a point where a character says "you" as in the word "you," and it's written as the letter "U."
The letter U. I don't know what is happening with BritBox, but it used to be so stable and solid, and everything was clean, and this feels so, well, to be fair, right, to BritBox, I'm the only one person in the country that pays for it, and like, if you just look at their homepage, where it's just this garbled mess of crap thrown there, there's no organization to it. There must be working on the smallest team in the back of a BBC studio, trying desperately to get some funding for it. But yeah, it's in a state right now that I don't understand what's happened.
BritBox reminds me of a TARDIS in the late 80s Doctor Who, where it's just falling apart,
Yeah,
I tried to download The Keeper of Tracking on my phone for an airplane flight last month, and I tried to watch it on the plane, but there was no visual, it was just sound. And it's like, how could this happen? And why is it broken like this? And also on my TV, whenever I try to watch an episode of Doctor Who, because that's all I use the app for, the subtitles are always on, and it's locked on.
Yeah.
And I have to manually turn it off.
Very
bizarre.
I don't understand why. I would like to see it improve.
Yeah.
But I think that would be dependent on if there's anybody else signing up for it.
Yeah.
Well, BritBox has got the problem is it's niche, And I'm glad it exists because it's a way of watching classic Who, but it doesn't really have a justification for its existence, for wider people to pay for it, because most of this stuff is available on iPlayer. Most of this stuff is available on ITV.
Well, most of this stuff should be available on iPlayer, but for Doctor Who, for example, it's not available on iPlayer for.
Because it's here. Although Classic Who's never been on iPlayer.
True, I'd be shocked if the BBC were like, oh yeah, for the 60th anniversary, let's just add all of it on iPlayer. That could be a possibility, but I don't see it ever happening because we didn't do it for the 50th.
I don't see it. I would see Modern Who going to BritBox sooner than I would see Classic Who going to iPlayer, and I think Modern Who on BritBox would be one hell of a way to boost up their revenue just a little bit. Because they really just have murder mystery shows from the 60s and Doctor Who on here.
But modern Doctor Who on BritBox is one way to make everyone angry,
Yeah.
Oh my
it should
god.
be on iPlayer.
I remember when it was removed from Netflix and people started freaking out.
Yeah. And now it's on iPlayer for presumably ever. It's iPlayer, so they just kind of get rid of stuff and just keep it locked away for no one to view for whatever reason.
Yeah, we'll see.
Yeah, but BritBox is just being weird at the moment, so it's making this episode more enjoyable to watch because the subtitles are very funny when they're wrong.
Yeah, Mathew and I are enjoying the typos. We're just giggling away in the background here.
Yeah, it's per BritBox. Hopefully you last. Still, don't die on us too soon. Otherwise, I don't know how I'm gonna watch Classic Who.
Yeah, we're gonna have to buy that shit from Amazon or something. That's gonna cost us a fortune.
Cost so much more than £5 a month. So go sign up and maybe they'll fix the goddamn website. Anyway, back to the episode. So the episode continues with a Cyberman karate chopping the Doctor really poorly. I don't remember exactly why they were doing that. Probably because of some exposition that was said.
Yeah, they were trying to ask the Doctor how to use the TARDIS, and the Doctor was like, "No, I don't want you to use the TARDIS." I think.
And then they figure out how to do it anyway.
Yeah.
Because they are seen in literally the next scene flying the TARDIS like it's no big deal, which brings in so many questions.
Yeah, they know exactly how to work the TARDIS and exactly. Well, we don't land exactly where we want to land, but. At the same time, it doesn't matter where they land because they could still use the TARDIS. There's so many scenes of the guys in Talos being like, "Oh my god, the TARDIS needs to be here. We need to bring the TARDIS here." But you're just down the corridor. I think. Where are they? I don't understand the difference in where they are.
Where's anybody in this episode, especially when they end up on Talos and they're in separate rooms that all look the same?
Yeah.
No idea. And they're all with aliens that look the same as well. It really adds to the confusion for me.
The sets look so small, but at the same time, we're supposed to imagine it's so large. Somehow we're on the other side of a planet or something, maybe? I don't understand.
I'll imagine they were just next door to one another. But the Cybermen and that start flying the TARDIS like it's no big deal. Which if they can get into the TARDIS like it's no big deal, why not? Sure, they can fly it like it's no big deal. And they land inside Talos, I presume. It's the big fridges with all the Cybermen for that one Cyberman episode.
Looking significantly worse than it did in Tomb of the Cybermen. There's not really any atmosphere. It's just a load of doors, really.
Yeah, but it's cold. As we get told many times.
Yeah, they make sure it's cold, and there's a whole load of steam on front of camera. It's brilliant.
Yeah,
it's
and people are going, "Ooh, cold." And then they stand and they talk around and they have more exposition. And they start talking about Talos and they start talking about how the Cybermen are corpses and they need it cold, and there's this weird rotting smell from the evil Cybermen or from the aliens or whoever the hell it was from. It's
in Tomb of the Cybermen, I don't think they ever mentioned the cold, so I guess a lot happened since Tomb of the Cybermen, even though
it just looked cold because it was black and white.
How long has it been since Tomb of the Cybermen is my question. Because this looks so much different. I just imagine they rebuilt the place. Did they get destroyed at the end of Tomb of Cybermen? I can't remember. It's been so long since we watched it.
No, they sealed it up. They sealed it up.
I think
it
never
partly exploded and then they sealed it up.
They also conveniently never mentioned the cryons in that episode either.
Yeah, they just forgot. But the once they finish talking, we then get a genuinely really good jump scare as a fist goes smashing through the windows, clocks a Cyberman, and then bursts its way through, and it's this zombie rogue Cyberman that we've been hearing about, and they kind of have a scuffle. You could build an episode around.
Yeah, exactly, which I was going to say. An episode around the rogue zombie Cybermen would be amazing, but,
Yeah, like a proper horror-filled episode. Like, imagine, because they're in the, the tomb of the Cyberman. All these frozen Cybermen, every now and then a few of them keep coming to life and keep killing other Cybermen and killing other people. Like, you could have a really good horror episode in your hands.
It is probably the best part of the episode where the Cyberman just knocks the other Cyberman's head off, which still kind of annoys me, because obviously there should be a person inside the Cyberman outfit. It doesn't make sense to not have the head be revealed, but whatever.
Yeah. But yeah, it's pretty cool. And then everybody kind of scatters in the chaos, except the Doctor. He gets held captive by the Cybermen that survive. And we follow Perry as she runs off, and she's about to get killed when suddenly different aliens show up, and they're here to save Perry. And also, these aliens are, I think, some of the worst looking aliens I've seen in Classic Who. It is an abysmal costume. It is like It is like a plastic bag on their head with bubble wrap mustaches.
Yeah. So in the script, the Cryons were supposed to be male, and they were made female by the director just because this episode has too many men. Like, every character is a man.
It's the Cybermen. Yeah.
And
I liked them being. I thought that was a good choice.
The change is really nice because it's the good guys being the women, bad guys being the men, and it works. It's a good contrast. And Eric Sayward was unhappy with the change, and he was also unhappy with the voices. And the voices are just, I don't even know how to describe them. They're pretty bad.
If I didn't have the subtitles telling me half of the words they were saying, I wouldn't be able to understand what they were saying. It's a lot of distortion and computer manipulation on their voice, and their performance is over the top as well.
Yeah.
So it's like,
it's just a load of wavy hands and
yeah.
They cannot see anything. They cannot feel anything, and they're just basically just blind. They cannot feel themselves around. We need help getting around the place as well. So yeah, Eric Sayward says, I couldn't imagine these people fighting. They'd break their nails or something and then go home and cry. And obviously they do have really long nails. Like, what the fuck is this design? What is this design?
You could stab with the nails, Stab.
So an interesting thing are these Cryons are played by Faith Brown, which you might not know the name of, but she's a comedian and impressionist, and she's the voice of a lady in Trapped. Do you remember Trapped? The CBBC show?
The CBBC show?
The game show. Where they're all in tower and you go down to each level. You don't remember Trapped?
No, I don't know if I watched it.
Okay, then another Cryon is played by Esther Freud, who is the great-granddaughter of Sigmund Freud, which is kind of a wild casting choice.
That's a strange one, yeah.
And
I don't really say it's a strange, like she has to be a psychologist. Yeah. It's just an interesting connection.
Yeah, she's not really an actress, but here she is. She's like a novelist, I think. And here she is just in Doctor Who for no reason, seemingly, just a stunt cast. And also another cast member, which got dropped out last minute because of the costumes. Koo Stark was cast as Varn, but quit over the costume she had to wear. And she was dating Prince Andrew at one point, who we won't mention. I say we won't mention in this podcast, but I just did. But she was obviously dumped because she was too old. But yeah, the outfits were still being modified 30 minutes before filming, which is you can see, but this was like really shit costumes.
It's a skin tight jumpsuit and a plastic bag on your head. Like, it is not a good costume.
And in the original script, it was revealed that a colony of Cryons is living inside Halley's Comet, and Litton's job was to convince the Cybermen to use the Comet as agents of the Earth destruction in order to lure the Cybermen, the Cyber Controller there, where he would be ambushed by the Cryons. The scheme is uncovered by the Cybermen, who then turn against Litton. And yeah, remember Haley's comment from the first episode? It's never mentioned again in this episode.
I honestly forgot about it until you said Haley's comment, and I was like, oh yeah. It was like a bad omen or something, wasn't it? They set that up.
But yeah, here it is. Just adds nothing to the plot, which is so
Interesting.
many subplots of this episode just adds nothing.
It adds something to the plot, Scott.
Yeah.
It adds runtime to the plot. And speaking of adding runtime, we are then with Lytton, his goon, and two other of the Cryons that they just kind of meet. The people are suddenly with Cryons now. They meet up with all of our main characters like it's no big deal.
Are these Cryons free people, or are they also imprisoned? Because why are they where are they? Do you know where they are? They're in some sort of cave or something. I don't understand.
They're under the tombs of Talos, and they're there to kill the Cybermen via espionage to get revenge on them losing the planet.
Yeah.
How they got to Talos, don't know.
How they communicated with Lytton, don't know.
Yeah.
How
Yeah,
Lytton Lytton knew the Cybermen were in the sewers for some reason. I mean, he knew the Doctor would show up for some reason. It's just a lot of conveniences driving this plot.
Yeah, and this is, where we get the exposition of Lytton's actually a good guy who was teaming up with the Cryons to take down the Cybermen for reasons.
Yeah.
And they're getting this goon to come in and help because they need an extra body to fly the ship, and they're going to pay him a bunch of money in diamonds. No big deal.
Remember the start of last year's episode where he dresses up as a policeman and guns down like 50 people? Yeah, he's a good guy now apparently.
Yeah.
Perfect.
He was playing the long game, And speaking of really, really boring scenes, we're also with the Doctor and a Cryon during this. We're cutting back and forth with it, and the Doctor gets thrown into a room by the Cybermen full of bombs, just to be like, yeah, stay in there. And hiding amongst the bombs for no reason is a Cryon. They all have names, but they all look the same, and I don't remember their names. So because all their names sound the same as well.
They all look the same. They all act the same. There's nothing differentiating them. It's just such a shit villain. I mean, we're not even villains. Aliens.
They're just aliens. Yeah.
Yeah.
And this one starts talking about the Doctor to be like, let's team up and fight the Cyberman or something. It's a conversation that really gets dragged out, where the Cryon keeps being like, I have something to tell you. I'm going to tell you something. I'm about to tell you something amazing. I'm about to tell you this thing, and never actually says it. It just keeps, how much longer do we need to pace out this episode to get it to 40 pages?
Yeah, the crux of what she basically has to say is, the Cybermen are planning on changing history. Also, you're in the room with bombs. It takes like 20 seconds to tell the Doctor that, but she just takes about 10 minutes to tell the Doctor that, which is some of the biggest padding I've ever seen in Doctor Who, especially since, they could have introduced this plot point in episode 1. We didn't need to pad this out.
Wow, that ice cream truck is loud.
You can hear it, yeah?
Yeah, it's getting through Discord filter, and it's that loud. There we go. It's stopped now, is it?
Yes.
Wow. Oh, he's back. Totally derailed the episode. Brilliant.
Do you want ice cream?
I do, actually.
I'm buying.
It's quite muggy. It's not really cold, but it's muggy today.
I had a nice Oreo ice cream sandwich earlier.
Wow. I did not.
It was good.
I had a toasty for lunch, and then I had risotto for dinner.
Oh, you fancy boy.
That's me.
Where were we?
We were saying that it was bad.
Fair.
The ice cream trucks honestly made my mind go blank. But we'll just continue explaining the episode. I feel like you were saying something significant. Whatever, I don't care. The Cybermen are like, we've got the TARDIS. Everything's going to be excellent, and everything's going to plan. No need to worry about anything. As things are slowly getting into motion now, Lytton's teamed up with the Cryons to go and do something with the spaceship. Perry's there with some other ones, and the Doctor's also there with another one. And also there's Rogue Cybermen. Don't worry about those guys.
Yeah, this episode kind of doesn't need the Doctor and Perry to drive along the plot. There's so much scenes of just people doing nothing. It just feels like, what's the point of any character in this episode?
There's so much nothing. Yeah, there is so much nothing, and it's impressive. Usually with classic Who, they need to squeeze that nothing into 20-minute segments, and they this one's 40 minutes, and they're like, God, we have like maybe 10 minutes of plot. And how?
Yeah, it's not just nothing. It's like we're standing around talking about ideas that could be interesting, but we never do anything with these ideas.
It's like a pitch meeting, and they're just throwing out ideas. Like, would this be a good episode? Would this be a good episode? But instead, that was the episode, and it's dreadful. Yeah. Oh my God, cake.
I'm eating that after this.
Amazing.
I know, this episode is just going down the rails.
Scott got handed cake by a mysterious hand off screen. I wish I had that power.
You were saying?
Yeah, the episode's bad. Let's continue watching it.
Yeah, but one good idea about presenting this episode is, oh my God, the Cybermen are going to change history. That could have been an amazing episode, the Doctor trying to rewrite history and get it on track. But
when they go into the Cybermen are trying to save their planet before it gets destroyed, or whatever it is they're actually doing, but they're doing it like a year before the event happens, and they're creating this paradox. Extremely Doctor Who storyline, extremely timey-wimey, and they never touch on it. They bring it up, and they're like, oh, that would be weird.
Yeah, you could take out the whole dialogue just explaining that, and the episode would just be exactly the same. The Doctor is just on the planet for some reason, and he needs to escape.
Yeah. God.
This episode, man. Brilliant.
The episode, unfortunately, continues as Lytton and his goon climb up from wherever it was they were hiding into the gravel of Telos, where they run into the 2 Cybermen prisoners that ran away. Don't forget about them. They're also a plot line. And the Cybermen prisoners' plan, as far as I remember it, one of them dresses up like a Cyberman. Mm-hmm. The other one is a prisoner, and they're going to escort right into the building because people will believe that that's a Cyberman and his escort getting taken in. And then the first time that they see somebody who they think are Cybermen, their immediate reaction is turn around and run away and hide.
I mean, that is a fair assumption, just to run away and hide,
Their whole plan, how are they going to get... They're going to get to the front door, and they're going to see a lot more Cybermen.
True, but you don't want to run into Cybermen when you can just hide, If you hide, you won't risk running into Cybermen.
Whole point was to get the costume on so you don't need to hide.
Yeah,
hiding in plain sight.
Yeah, it's stupid. This whole idea is just basically from the Daleks, Ian inside the Dalek outfit and then pretending we're prisoners. It's the same idea. And also, the whole subplot with them two goes nowhere.
I love where it goes, because it goes somewhere just purely like they gave up. But for now, Lytton and that are approaching the 2 guys, and they get stopped and they get patted down by one of them, and he's like, wait a minute, you guys aren't Cybermen, you're pure flesh and blood. And the goon's like, what do you mean pure flesh and blood? And then the guy takes off his glove to reveal he has a tiny baby robot hand. Like, it's so small. Is the small little claw of a hand that definitely didn't fit the glove that he was just wearing. I laughed when I saw it the first time. It's ridiculous.
The idea of them being partially converted is a great idea, but it goes nowhere. It's a good idea for another episode, but here it just is introduced and it's dropped. The episode could have been exactly the same if they were just human.
You could include it in the episode with the zombie Cybermen, because you could be like, there's something wrong with the Cyberman process. Either it doesn't work, or it works, or you become a zombie. There's like these 3 like paths it could be, and then you've got these 3 different things going on. It'd still be one too many plot lines, but you could include them.
This episode is giving us good ideas. For the Big Finish script competition, we should really submit one.
Yeah, we should. I think submissions might be closed for this year, but...
If we start writing now, we could be on time for next year.
I think we said the exact same thing last year. I think we did say the same thing last year, but yeah, we should write one at some point. I'm just always scared about scared about writing Doctor Who.
Yeah. Don't worry about it because it can't be as bad as this.
I know. I'm not for me. It's capturing the voice of the Doctor and making it sure it's the right incarnation of the Doctor for the voice I'm giving it. That's the bit that I'm always like, I don't know.
For this hypothetical idea, which Doctor do you think would work? I'm thinking a darker Doctor, like a 7 or a 9.
I was
or a 12.
I was thinking a darker Doctor as well. I feel like Capaldi had enough Cyberman episodes. He had, and he also did kind of have a zombie Cyberman one with the dead coming back as Cybermen. It wasn't so much that they were killing other Cybermen, but remember, like, the Brigadier came back, and saluted and flew off to the moon or whatever it was that the episode ended.
Oh my god, I love Cyberbrig. Well, we should include Cyberbrig in our script.
Yeah, I would, because I didn't hate it as much as you did. 9 could be fun. 9 didn't see the Cybermen, did he? He just saw their dead helmet.
Yeah.
So that could be a fun.
But
fun
he did have like 3 episodes in his audio drama.
And Big Finish, yeah.
Also, we need to think about who would the companion be, or is he solo?
Yeah. There's a lot. There'd be a lot to go into.
Keep tuned, listeners, because we'll get this out soon.
Definitely. But in the meantime, let's see what Perry's up to. Oh, she's getting creeped on by 2 lady aliens. Look at that. Lovely. As she's in miscellaneous underground bunker with the 2 of the Crayon people, and there she's like, how did you guys know who the Doctor was? That was a bit weird. Have you met him before or something? And then the 2 Cryons turn away, and then one of them's like, "You're an idiot. We should have killed her." And it never gets brought up again that they wanted to kill Perry. They were just like, "We should kill Perry right now and just get it over with. She's useless to the plan."
Kill her, even if we're meant to be a peaceful species. And also Perry's part of the people who are going to save her, save them. Sorry. So why kill her? Wouldn't the Doctor just be like, "Oh my god, he killed my friend. I'm not saving you."
Especially this Doctor, he'd kill them back.
Yeah.
With his bare hands, he'd just choke him to death. But yeah, this one they're like, "Oh, we've teamed up with Lytton because he's a criminal, but we need him because we're getting the Cybermen to stay on the planet, because if they leave the planet, they'll destroy the planet, and this is our home. We don't want to destroy it," which is pretty decent reasoning. But it's again another plot line getting added on to this.
And another bullshit thing with Lytton is, okay, he's probably doing it for the money, so he's not totally a good guy. But also at the start of episode 1, he was like, "Oh my god, we could rob this bank and just make money off of it. Why not just do that if you're trying to make money?" Unless he's actually doing this for the purposes of being a good guy. He's a secret good guy, but yet he's not written as a good guy. He's written as a bad guy. His personality hasn't changed at all. He's still mean to people. So what is his intentions here?
His intention is whatever needs to be done in the scene.
That's pretty much everyone's intention in this episode. Like, it's just scene upon scene of just people acting not in character.
Yeah.
It's so bizarre.
We then go to the Doctor for an incredibly long scene, and in between that, we are cutting to Lytton. I just want to cover the Lytton stuff now because it's really, really short. Lytton and his new goons are like, "Okay, let's go steal this time machine. Up this ladder, boys." Then they all go up the ladder, and Lytton gets yanked down by a Cyberman, and then they all look down at him and go, "Ah, well, bye, Lytton." And Lytton gets captured, and this is literally where their storyline just ends, basically, because Lytton gets turned into a Cyberman, and the goons just get shot. And it's like the weirdest sudden ending to that storyline. It was literally like, "Oh, we can't wrap this up," but they die.
Like
we had that entire prison break last episode just for them to get shot in a corridor.
It's so bizarre. But I understand the point is just being like, "Oh yeah, in real life, people don't get endings that wraps up everything nice and neat," which works. But here it's just like, "Oh yeah, we don't know what to do with these characters anymore. Let's just kill them off because I don't know what to do."
I'm reminded, and I know this is sci-fi, but fantasy and sci-fi share a lot of the same themes. and often you get a sci-fi fantasy show, which I think Doctor Who definitely dabbles into from time to time. And I don't know if you're familiar with epic rap battles of history.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's one of my favorite rap battles is J.R.R. Tolkien versus George R.R. Martin. And there's this great line from J.R.R. Tolkien where it says, "The genre's called fantasy. It's meant to be unrealistic, you myopic manatee." You know, it's the just because people are miserable in real life doesn't mean that the sci-fi also has to have this miserable, we're not wrapping up plot lines, because that is not satisfying for us as a viewer. You know, we want to have at least some, even if you want to give them this unhappy ending, you know, earn it at least, foreshadow it a little bit, make the characters be like, I don't think we're going to get out of this, but make their sacrifice worth something, rather than they just get gunned down by a Cyberman that then looks away like, well, it spooks me a bit.
We'll cover this a bit more later on, but at the end of the episode I was like, well, what's the point of all that then? There's no conclusion to anything. The Doctor basically leaves the episode as he started
the episode just ends.
This goes. So Eric Sayward says, in terms of like the violence and people being murdered off right, left, and center. It's my opinion that if you've got an impact between two people, it's better to be more realistic than pretending that me hitting you in the nose is a joke. It isn't. You fall on the floor and your nose is very painful and it bleeds. We want to imply that if you hit someone, it hurts. So the Cybermen being around, they kill people, and which is fair enough. But also, the Cybermen are really written very stupidly in this episode, leaving the Doctor in a room full of bombs.
Weak. And speaking of that room full of bombs, this conversation goes on for about, I don't know, 6-7 minutes, it feels like.
And the problem with this scene is the Cryon is just explaining stuff to the Doctor that we already know.
That we've just heard. We've just heard them explain that they're going to keep the Cybermen and they need to blow up this thing so the Cybermen don't leave, and if they leave, they'll die. It's literally, they're just explaining the same thing. There's one good moment in this scene, and that is when the Doctor figures out why he's here and what's been happening. And that's because he's like, you know, they keep saying that the Cybermen are going to travel on time, but the Time Lords wouldn't allow that. They would send somebody to stop that happening, you know? And then there's like a brief pause where like everything dawns on him and he's like, oh, for God damn it. And he just starts shouting upward at the Time Lords that are presumably looking down at him from somewhere. And his performance is excellent. He does Angry Man very well.
Yeah, Colin Baker is just born to play the Angry Doctor, but in this episode it feels kind of wasted because the Time Lord subplot just gets dropped after that. It's like, what's the point? What's the point in anything? And also,
what's the point?
I do like the idea of the
What's the point in being alive? If Doctor Who's taught us anything, you know, take a line from Dan. What's the point in being alive?
I do like the idea of the Cryons not wanting the Cybermen to leave because they'll destroy the planet otherwise. But also, at the same time, it doesn't really matter for this episode. It's kind of dropped at the end as well. Every subplot is just dropped. There's no conclusion, there's no ending.
Yeah, do you remember the Rogue Cyberman? I hope not.
What would you say it does it worse? Do you remember Resurrection of the Daleks, which we covered last year? Would you say that episode did it worse? Because, you know, the whole plan to clone the Doctor, to assassinate the Time Lords, kind of came out of nowhere in the plot.
So Resurrection of the Daleks had 1,000 different plot lines, and most of them were all dreadful. But what the Dalek episode had going for it was Davros's performance.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, his monologues, Peter Davidson's performance. You know, these were things that made the episode compelling, even if what you were watching was gibberish. You know, their performances were so strong. Whereas here, Colin Baker's giving a good performance when he can. Otherwise, it's just fine. It's doable. And there's no big monologue. There's no big villain, really. You know, they've got Cyber Controller, but he's just kind of bumbling around. It's just kind of things happening in a sequence of events rather than any semblance of plot or character.
Yeah, that's a great point, because obviously in Resurrection of the Daleks we had the Doctor and Davros interacting for quite a bit, whereas here it's like the Cyber Controller is off in another room and maybe meets the Doctor for like 2 minutes at most. Yeah. And occasionally we'll cut to the Cyber Controller and you're just like, oh yeah, we need to get the TARDIS, or the Doctor's in this room. And it just adds to nothing.
Yeah, it's great. But in his conversation with this crayon lady, the doctor's like, "Oh, this sugar over here is a bomb, you say? Well, let me use my not sonic screwdriver, but sonic lance." And, unlocks the door, leaves the bomb out for the Cyberman, and he gets torn to shreds. Torn to shreds, you say? And then, he gives the lance, not sonic screwdriver, definitely a lance, to the crayon lady, and then she looks like right into the camera and she's like, "The Cybermen will not leave Telos." And this is the second time in like as many scenes that the crayons have ended looking into the camera, because we didn't mention it, but the ending with Perry, they look dead into the camera again. This just keeps happening, and I find it so distracting.
Yeah, the cyber controller ends every scene by just walking up slowly to the camera and delivering a line that's supposed to be big and dramatic, but yet at the same time, I just don't give a shit. And also, the Cyberman guarding the place just walks up to the little thing, even though he should know there's explosives in there. He just kind of walks up to the explosives, being like, "Oh, what's that over there?" Like, if your prisoner drops something outside their door, you don't walk up to it. You inspect it from afar, don't you? You call somebody else to
signal somebody that something's happening. No. You just go up and touch it.
Makes so much sense. Perfect. And also just the whole idea of just leaving the doctor in a room full of explosives. Genius idea,
That was his first day on the job.
Do they know the room is full of explosives? Because
they have to. Who put the explosives there if not?
It was probably the Cryons.
How did they get the explosives
also,
there? They can't go outside.
Yeah, the Cryons can't leave the room even though the rest of the place is still cold. Should be still cold.
I think it was because the explosion was good. No, because the explosion only activates in heat.
Yeah, but why is that room warm, but the rest of the place is just so cold?
Maybe the Cyberman guard was chilly.
Just turned down the thermostat.
Yeah.
Oh, what an episode, man.
Yikes.
Big yikes.
So our episode continues, and we are with Lytton getting interrogated by Cybermen, and they are just crushing his hand to dust, and there is blood his fists are just soaked in blood. It is way more violent than I was anticipating seeing. Yeah,
on today's standards, that's pretty low level violence, but for 1985,
even today's standards for Doctor Who, I would say this is violent. Doctor Who still doesn't really have blood in it.
Yeah, true.
And showing somebody's hands be crushed into just bloody pulp, I would be like, oh my god, Doctor Who's really violent suddenly. This made me go, this isn't Doctor Who.
Yeah.
This is like Torchwood.
So yeah, you wouldn't be surprised, but this caused a lot of complaints. And Michael Grade, who famously hated the show because of how cheap it looked, but yet he also cuts the budget by 5% of his show, so no wonder it looks so cheap. But yeah, he put this show on an 18-month hiatus because of the violence, and he's just like, okay, you have to reduce your episode count, you have to be more funny, you can't be violent anymore. Because this season of Doctor Who alone had like hangings, it had poisoning, it had hands being crushed, a whole load of blood. But yeah, as the show came back for season 23, the ratings still weren't as good as they hoped, and so Michael Grade was just like, "Oh yeah, let's just fire Colin Baker. It's all his fault. Fire Colin Baker and just start afresh." Which is unfair.
It's a very tragic ending.
And also, season 23 was rough in the first place because Robert Holmes, who was writing the final script, died before he got to write the final script. And when Eric Sayward got in a big argument with John Nathan Turner, he quit. The script editor quit. So John Nathan Turner basically had to finish the final episode himself. And that's why season 23 was just so rough for him.
Yikes.
But yeah, we can basically track the cancellation of Doctor Who to this moment in a roundabout way, basically.
Sorry, I was taking a photo. Yeah. It is the beginning of the end, isn't it?
Yeah.
This
episode without the violence is shit. like off screen, I almost called you Michael. I don't know why I almost called you Michael.
Not even my name.
So yeah, off screen, Matthew and I were like, we don't know what the fuck is going on. There's just a load of stuff happening all of a sudden. I mean,
I'm clicking through the scenes right now, and I do not understand these sequence of events. Like I do not. However, it's cut together or shot. I don't know what it is. Just these last 10 minutes are completely incoherent to me. You know, it's just stuff is happening in an order, and I'm like, okay, but why? And then it's over. But while Litton's getting his hands crushed and turned into a Cyberman, we go to the crayon lady who's like, I'm just going to set these drugs on now for whatever reason. I'm just going to heat them up and kill myself. Not knowing how long it's going to take. Apparently it's going to take an inconsistent amount of time, even though I'm pretty sure she said as soon as it hits 10 degrees, it combusts.
yeah, it's so confusing why she would just commit suicide now, because the Doctor is running to the TARDIS as we speak. So the Doctor could run into the TARDIS and go back to the moment where he left and be like, hello, I'm here. Come into the TARDIS. You're fine.
Nah, because that would be entering his own time stream.
Yeah, but he's done that before.
Yeah, but, this episode's really heavy on the time travel rules. So,
the time travel rules are bullshit. You know, we covered that one Christopher Eccleston audio drama where he enters his own time stream by mistake. Nothing of consequence happens.
There's also the episode in season 1 with Christopher Eccleston where he literally enters his own time stream, on Father's Day.
Yeah, but that's more because Rose saved her dad
Rose,
from dying.
but the Doctor's never like, oh, we can't do this. He's like, we can do this 2-3 times.
But, Colin Baker can be in 2 rooms at once because he's a big man, but also because he's a time traveler in this show. He could be in one room, go into the TARDIS, in another room, arriving in the TARDIS.
And also, time travel-wise, there's, like, an infinite amount of versions of the Doctor on, like, 15,000 different planets all at the same time, solving, mysteries and fighting Cybermen and Daleks all at the same time, because time travel, so...
This show is such a mess.
But she kills herself... Oh, then we get our thrilling conclusion to the Goon storyline. They're walking down this dark corridor. They're like, the ship's just up ahead as we see it land in the loudest sound effect you've ever heard in your life. And then one of them's like, it's just through this door. Walks into the door, just gets electrocuted and dies. Then the door opens to an albeit very cool shot of a Cyberman standing silhouetted as it then just unloads its gun into the remaining 2 guys and then just kind of wanders off like, well...
Yeah. There is a great low-angle shot of a Cyberman at some point. I think we might have missed it. I don't know. This whole episode is just a sequence of events that just get jumbled about to my head because there's no cohesive plot tying it all together. It's just a load of scenes,
It is indeed a load of scenes.
Especially these last minutes where it's like, oh yeah, here's some violence, here's some talking, here's some violence. It's 5 subplots concluding, but also not concluding.
Yeah. And talking about violence, the Doctor is with the Crayons at this point, I think, and a bunch of Cybermen come and start shooting at them, and they kill a couple of the Crayons, they kill a couple of the Cybermen, and then everybody's like, well, that was groovy, or not so groovy. They also rip open a zombie Cyberman head. Remember the zombie Cybermen? They were here. This one wasn't alive. Don't worry about it. They never come back again. And we see the inside of their masks. And now I understand what you were getting on about, being annoyed, because there's no human head in there. It's just a robot. These are just robot Cybermen.
Yeah. Yeah.
In
their speech, they're the most human Cybermen ever, because we don't really sound that robotic. Obviously, their voice is robotic, but their delivery of the lines sounds very human.
And we've seen them turning people into Cybermen, and they still like Litton had the Cyberman helmet on his head. Yeah. When he gets turned into a Cyberman, he gets like the arches over and everything. Just waiting for that face mask, and maybe it's just the face slowly gets upgraded into robotics, and that was just a really old Cyberman. That would be the only way I could see it. But yeah,
that's something Doctor Who does way too often. We always forget the Cybermen are actually people inside of them. In like Nightmare in Silver, which is the Neil Gaiman episode, they're just wandering around like Iron Man. We're just not human. We're just robots. It's very annoying.
But I mean, not being human's the main point of the Cybermen, isn't it? You know, it's about trying to remove that. They're very similar. Obviously, they were the replacement for the Daleks. They are extremely similar to Daleks in that they don't want that emotion, you know? Whereas Daleks are like, the only emotion we have is hate. Cybermen want no emotion. And it's whatever. I think they can be boring at times. They're, you know, classics. But
that's the problem with people with no emotion. We don't really want anything other than just to upgrade people. That's all that's our main objective. Whereas here, it's like, oh yeah, we want to rewrite history. But yet the episode doesn't really do that.
The episode doesn't really do anything, to be fair. We then have the bunch of Cybermen confronting one of the Crayons. I think it's the one that set the bomb.
It's the one that was with the Doctor.
Yeah, and they're like, "Where's the Doctor? How long's he been gone?" And they've got the great line of, "I don't have a time device," or whatever it is, you know.
I don't have an instrument for measuring time.
That's it. Yeah, I'm not wearing a watch.
Yeah.
And the Cybermen aren't having any of that cheek and just throw her out into the corridor where they watch her boil alive. Again, you know, this is not so violent because it's just like a smoke machine or whatever, some steam in her jacket, but the idea of it, that it plants in your head of watching this creature boil alive is pretty dark, you know.
But also, just the whole idea of putting the Doctor in the room with her and not keeping an eye on the Doctor, because there's a point where we turn on device to what, you know, there's like a CCTV device and we're like, oh my god, the Doctor's escaped. Oh god, how could we do that? Like, just keep an eye on the Doctor. And also keeping the Doctor in the room with explosives and a lady who knows how to handle the explosives.
Yeah. And this is where the episode just kind of doesn't know what to do with itself, because so the bomb's going off no matter what. The Crayons are getting what they want. The humans have been shot dead. The guys that were trying to escape in the time machine have been shot dead. The Doctor has his TARDIS back. Everything is basically done because characters can just leave and get what they want. And so the Doctor's away to leave, and then Perry's like, "Oh my god, you can't leave Lytton behind. He's going to be turned into the Cyberman." In which the Doctor's like, "He'd love that. Why? That's a good thing for him, you know." Because obviously the Doctor assuming he was working with the Cyberman, when in reality he was not. And then the Doctor has to suddenly add in this extra plot of, I have to go now and save Lytton. I have to go and tell him he's a good man, you know, and extend this episode by 3 minutes for no reason.
Also, the Doctor wants to fuck off when all the Cryons haven't, like, there's no escape for the Cryons yet.
The Doctor is as sick of this story as we are. Yeah. I was on board with the Doctor just being like, well, I didn't die in this scene. I'm just going to go home. The TARDIS is right around the corner.
Yeah, his objective for this episode is, oh my god, the Cybermen have a TARDIS and I'm in jail. I need to get out of jail and back to the TARDIS. That's all he wants to do.
His objective for this episode is the Time Lords wanted him to stop a paradox happening, and he really didn't want to do that. My voice is going. That's how much I hated this episode. Oh my god.
Yeah, the Time Lords... Yeah, so history is about to be changed if the Doctor leaves, basically, because the Cybermen are winning the day. You know, the Cybermen are winning the day, and he just wants to fuck off.
No, because the bomb's going off no matter what.
Yeah, but also killing all the Cryons.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this episode... this episode is... Yeah, the bomb going off I forgot about, to be honest, because there's so much going on in this episode.
Yeah, but the Doctor travels back in the TARDIS to go save Lytton, and when the TARDIS appears, it is classic blue box TARDIS, and I actually really like the look of the blue box in this one. It's a very nice looking police box that he comes out into, and this is just implying the Doctor presumably just turned off the chameleon circuit because he was like, this isn't as fun as I thought it would be.
Or maybe he just stopped trying to work.
Maybe, but I kind of like the idea of the Doctor purposefully having it off now. You know, before it was broken and he never had the time to fix it. Then he fixed it and decided, he got attached to the way that it looked before, you know.
I like the idea of him just fucking around for like 15 minutes trying to make sure it's...
breaking it again.
Yeah, it goes back to the blue box. But also, why does it go back to the blue box if he makes it not work anymore? We didn't just get stuck to whatever it was when they landed to tell us?
Shut up. But when the Doctor comes out to see Lytton, he rescues him down, and they exchange basically like Lytton being like, I don't even remember what he says. Basically, just boring, like, I'm gonna die, leave me, doctor, you can't be here, and the
He's just
doctor's like,
basically
I will die.
Yeah, basically the drugs the Cybermen give him are just working too well, and he's becoming Cyberman. There's no point in saving him because he can't be saved. Which, in another episode, if he actually did work into giving a character arc for Lytton, I would be invested. But here he's just being written as a bad guy, and he's never really changed, so I don't care about him. There's no point to his arc. And it's a good idea. Like, the idea of a villain being turned good is an idea Classic Who never really did. A character arc for a villain is a great idea, but here it's just wasted.
Doesn't do much of anything. Then a bunch of Cybermen come in and they shoot Lytton, and then they shoot each other as the doctor kind of fumbles around the room. And then that's just the end of that. And then he gets into the TARDIS, the base explodes, and he goes, maybe I misjudged Lytton. And then the episode literally just cuts to credits.
Yeah, so
there's no wrap-up, no conclusion, just over.
Yeah, so the Doctor killing all the Cybermen is something that people complained about again. But Colin Baker is like, okay, if you're in a room full of robots that want to destroy the world and potentially destroy Earth, why not just kill all the robots? But also, why do you need to kill all the robots if the place is going to explode anyway?
Yeah, and also, you know, it's the Doctor, not the murderer.
Also, Colin Baker wanted to stand on top of one of the Cybermen and machine gun them like Rambo, but the director was like, "No, Colin, that's no."
What an interesting version of the Doctor.
And also the ending where he's just basically like, "Okay, maybe there's something wrong with me that didn't see that Lytton was a good guy." Is a decent idea on premise. Like, I have to work on myself.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, Lytton, again, didn't do anything good. He just behaved like himself from last time. There's nothing in the character of Lytton that seems like he's a good guy. He's just the same Lytton as always. So what's the point?
There isn't one. It's a bad episode, you know, but we have somehow managed to reach the end of it. It feels like forever, but this episode's going to be like an hour long at most. But
it's one of our shortest for sure.
Yeah.
Which is amazing.
It is. What did you think of Attack of the Cybermen now that we have concluded both parts?
Part 1 is so much better than part 2. Like, part 1, you watch it and you're thinking, oh yeah, this has its flaws, it has its rough edges, but it could be good. And then part 2 just throws all that goodness out the window. Just like, let's just write a load of subplots that don't really add to anything. Let's just do what Resurrection of the Daleks did from last season. And I feel very underwhelmed. There's nothing in this episode to make me want to rewatch it, which is a shame because it's Colin Baker's first proper episode.
Yeah. You know, I see a lot of parallels with Colin Baker and Capaldi's Doctors. In that they were the darker Doctors that people didn't really get on board with and that had a really shaky first season. You know, Capaldi was... And they both had that arc of... Or at least wanted that arc for Colin Baker of starting off rough and then becoming a good man.
Yeah.
You know, becoming that soft-spoken, well-meaning, caring doctor and having to go through that journey, which Capaldi gets through his 3 seasons. You know, by the end of season 3, he's a sweetheart of a dude. At the start of season 1, you know, he's got the angry eyebrows and he's shouting at everybody. And even that was met with a really mixed reception. And that was in, 2013 or something? Yeah. Oh, my God. You know, flashback into the 80s when you don't have, internet culture and stuff like that. I cannot imagine being called... It's a brave idea for Colin Baker's Doctor to completely change the character that people have been watching for 22 years.
Yeah, after 22 years, a change to the character is a welcome change. But at the same time, maybe a little bit too dark.
People hate change. Yeah. People hate change. But these 2 episodes particularly, I think the first one was fine. It was a fine little adventure where nothing happened, and this one, nothing happened, but also everything happened at the same time, and I was confused, all of it. It really wasn't good. I really didn't enjoy it. Colin Baker as the Doctor, I like. Yeah. I don't think he's not one of my favorites yet, but I've seen 2 bad episodes, really, with him in it, and his performance is solid, and he has his moments where he shines through as the Doctor, so I'm definitely not against the casting of him.
It is, again, so heartbreaking that Colin Baker is the only actor playing the Doctor
Yeah.
who got fired. Now that's just not fair on him. It's really sad.
It is.
But for
tragic.
the last 23 years, he's been playing the Doctor just fine on Big Finish. So at least he's got a good. He's had more good years playing the Doctor than bad years.
Yeah, for sure. And it's just a bummer way to open season 22, and just a bummer of an episode. I really didn't like this episode. It sucked.
We have nothing to say about this episode because the episode has nothing to say. There's no political commentary. It's just, oh yeah, here's the good guys, here's the bad guys. And there's a load of shit happening, and the episode ends.
Bye.
Yeah.
But yeah, what a garbage time.
What do you think of the episode, for listeners? Do you like this
Yeah.
episode? I wonder if there's anyone who thinks this episode is the best episode ever made.
There has to be at least one person.
Like
Statistically, there has to be at least one person.
I want to see if there's any 10 out of 10 ratings on IMDb or something.
Okay.
I found a 9 out of 10 review that says Attack of the Cybermen is the greatest Doctor Who story of all time, written on the 6th of April 2022. And the review says, let's be honest, I'm a huge fan of Colin Baker's Sixth Doctor. He's larger than life personality. He's such an underrated celebrity to the show to be the hero. The Cybermen are becoming half pugnacious allies of Lytton who fought so hard they almost had an opportunity until they had unfortunate deaths. Perry is almost a loser, but the action and reliability of other characters were legit, and in the end, things turned out normal. So really nothing to say about the episode.
You didn't think I'd be back, yet here I am, ending the episode, even though I said I wouldn't, and now I am. It's just because the episode does just kind of end so suddenly because of this power cut, and it feels wrong to just leave it like that. So instead, I will say this. You can send us an email with your thoughts on anything Doctor Who related, or including this episode. Just send us an email with your thoughts at whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com. That's whowatcheswhopod@gmail.com, and we will read it out at the end of the month with our monthly news roundup podcast. It's a lot of fun. Those are usually our most popular episodes, so definitely email us in if you want your opinion heard by folk. Next week we have got part 1 of The Family of Blood. That's the storyline that we're covering next throughout July, is the Family of Blood two-parter with David Tennant, one of my favorite of all time storylines, one of the best two-parters in Doctor Who history. I think it's absolutely phenomenal, and I'm looking forward to watching it, since Attack of the Cybermen was just dreadful, an absolutely terrible story. So it'd be good to have a good one in July at least. That'll be out next week. Hopefully there won't be any power cuts for that. But until then, bye-bye.